Good evening and welcome to 16 by 9. They are beaten, verbally assaulted, sometimes even murdered. Violence against transgender people is so frequent, many fear for their lives. That's why the transgender fight is being called the next civil rights movement, a fight to simply be treated humanely. Until that happens, people on the front lines say it can be a struggle to find a safe place.
The only thing I remember the person saying was, let's see if you're a real woman or not. You hear it all, tranny, freak, you know, you should die, you know.
I get shot, I get raped, I get beat up. One of them women take her vagina and said, "This is a woman, you don't have it."
Speak to any transgender person and you will hear of insults, threats, and attacks so brutal, it's almost inhumane.
And not too long ago, a woman and a child were collecting cans and opened the dumpster and found a trans woman in there. Yeah. At times, I feel like we have been casted aside or that there isn't enough help for us.
We pass them on the street, on the subway. Some of us stare, but we don't know who they are.
It makes me sad. Like, I go to wherever I'm sleeping at, I cry that night, you know, just to know that, you know, I'm transgender and I really can't go where I need to go in life.
Harassment, homelessness, murder. It happens to transgender people almost every day.
We are here. We're not pretending to be women just to kind of piss you off, people. We're just trying to be ourselves, and then you can't deny what we are because it's right there in front of you.
While being transgender has reached the mainstream, with women like Caitlyn Jenner and Laverne Cox on the cover of magazines, the reality is far less glamorous.
We've just been, born into, you're wrapped around the pink blanket, you're wrapped around a blue blanket, and that is how your life will go.
Transgender is when the sex a person is assigned at birth doesn't match the gender they identify as.
And when people can't figure you out, they get angry. People get angry, they're afraid, they get aggressive.
Before I go out of my house, it's like you be a warrior.
Still, these women say being trans is a gift.
The bravest thing you can do is go out and be yourself. That takes courage. That takes, pardon the expression, takes balls. Whether you've given them up or not, it takes courage to be yourself every day.
People may think they don't know anyone who is transgender, but the reality is trans people are everywhere, and they're targeted by violence.
If you had told, like, even 10-year-old me, someday Big he's gonna be living in a shelter, he's not gonna be living at home, it would probably have just, blown my mind.
And that violence can start when they're just kids.
It is scary a lot, and it's kind of become the norm for me.
Daniel McAndrews says when his family wouldn't accept him as a boy, he left.
It can be kind of frightening, you never know who's gonna be there. You never know who's gonna, pick a fight with you or something.
Daniel is transgender. He's only 16 and says life at home with his parents was tough.
She would, at times would get physically violent. And at also times I might, have gotten physically violent back, but I was never,
Daniel's family denies the allegations. At least 20% of homeless youth are LGBT, many staying on park benches or in alleys. Daniel says he feels safer being homeless than being at home.
They don't really believe I'm trans, I think, or they keep asking me for proof, which is kind of, I don't know how to give them proof. I don't know. It's awful, because it's like someone's saying that they don't respect a huge part of you.
He says he was hospitalized, suffered panic attacks, and was put on medication.
You know, it recently did occur to me, like, if I hadn't left, I don't think I'd be here right now. I basically tried to commit suicide because I didn't really see any option out of my home life. I was just really miserable.
Dr. Alex Abramovich works with youth like Daniel.
If you go through life and somebody, and people are continuously using the wrong name or the wrong pronoun to refer to you, you start to question, your own mind. You start to question your own mental health. And you start to feel, you start to eventually believe that perhaps you aren't real and maybe you actually shouldn't exist.
He calls it transphobia, not treating transgender people, young or old, with basic human respect.
Transphobia leads to suicide. End of story, right?
Over 40% of all transgender people will attempt suicide, exhausted by a constant battle for acceptance. Compare that to under 10% for the non-transgender population.
Suicide attempts, I think everybody here has had at least one, two, still here. One was after being raped 3 times in a homeless shelter in a week.
After this interview was filmed, a trans woman in Toronto, a friend of these 3 women, committed suicide. Once the sun sets in Detroit, it's like another world. And Julissa Abad is always prepared.
So I carry my mace, and I usually carry a blade. I usually take the packets of condoms for the girls that I know or girls that are out there. That's the toolkit.
She's taken on the role of protector, offering help to those who can't get any.
I'm part of that transgender population. I'm part of the population that's living in poverty. I make minimum wage, work 25 hours a week. I choose to make the personal decision not to go out there. They don't have the same choices that I have. We are on Woodward.
Julissa says women like her can't get jobs, face discrimination, and many are left coming here.
This is the laundromat. This is where we're going. And see, there's already somebody standing out here.
In front of this laundromat on Woodward Avenue, transgender women work the streets.
I see you, honey. Yeah. All right, baby.
Women like Julissa's friend, Ashley Avery.
Going to school and stuff like that, I was good in school. But for me to look back on myself now, I feel like it's kind of downgrading, but I have to make a living.
This year, 2 transgender women have been shot in this area.
Okay, I have this. It's a nice little blade.
Another 2 have been murdered, including Julissa's friend, Amber. It's a sad reality, knowing that a friend can be lost at any moment. So Julissa walks alongside Ashley, hoping to keep track of her.
And just the unfairness and the unhumane way that sometimes us trans women are treated is what made me want to make a difference and make it easier for the next generation so that some of them don't have to experience some of the hardship that I have.
This is the situation. I think that oftentimes people may turn a blind eye. People don't understand just how serious, what an emergency situation this actually is.
Ivana knows the danger Ashley is in. She lived it here in Canada.
11 years I was a sex worker. I don't regret what I did, and I am the person who I am right now. I survived a lot in that time,
In that time, Ivana has lost many friends. Women like Cassandra Doe, murdered in 2003. Women Ivana thinks Canada has forgotten.
She was a beautiful person, but sorry, I can't talk about her. It's too painful. But I hope they find the killer.
I get scared that when they roll up, you don't know if they're gonna have a weapon or if they're gonna start to shoot. It's just not a safe environment, so it's kind of scary.
It's cold on this night in Detroit. So far, Ashley has made $60.
Look, a date, look.
That's like one of my biggest fear. Like, I really don't have no fear, but that right there is like one of my biggest fear. For me to get in the date car and I never come back.
No, I can't get your license plate that way. Go this way.
But when Ashley gets a date, Julissa loses track of her friend.
4-door, dark, Grand Prix. 4-door, dark, Grand Prix. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the license plate because the car backed up and doesn't have a plate on the front, so.
Meaning Ashley could be in danger. Next, no safe place.
I was coming around that corner when the guy was shooting people.
The following program includes graphic images and mature subject matter intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Chica was a character of a soap opera, a Brazilian soap opera. She was born into slavery in the 1800s when the Portuguese Empire invaded Brazil. And she was so beautiful. But she had something in her. She had this life in her. She knew she was important. And she fought for her freedom from herself.
Chica Ducharme has been fighting most of her life. Fighting because people laugh, people judge, people don't understand.
I suffer violence on a daily basis.
Chica is transgender. She identifies as a woman. Today she wants to make a point and is expressing both identities. It's shocking, but it doesn't have to be.
I believe in verbal abuse is violence too. Whole self is hurt. Not like if you push me, I'll get over that quickly.
Women like Chica are inundated with inappropriate questions and stares on a daily basis, leading to discrimination and harassment.
People at work or anywhere, they just ask you, so what, are you gonna cut it off?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you cut it off.
Yeah, I'm gonna have it bronzed and hanging on a wall.
I don't think that people understand just what a violation that is, right? And so, I tend to turn the question back on them and ask them what's in their pants. I know that's not very professional right here, but.
For decades, trans people have fought for equality alongside the gay rights movement, but their rights were often left to the side.
People need to understand that we have talents and we want to contribute to society, and we are being pushed back.
I think that it can be very confusing for some people, and it probably is very confusing for most people because being trans is still not normalized in our society.
And being trans isn't something that can be turned off.
It's like, stop it, stop being it. How? Give up having blue eyes right now.
Yes.
Quick.
That lack of understanding means there aren't enough resources, opportunities, or safe places for transgender people.
And this is something that us trans people face on a daily basis, being completely erased from systems, being made invisible.
Daniel McAndrew says he felt invisible for most of his life.
I never had that many friends growing up. So I think I just, like I said, I just kind of existed when I was a kid.
At 16, he's homeless.
I've been, let me count it, July, August. I've been, living away from home. This is month 4, I think.
He says he was 13 when he figured it out. He was transgender.
I was probably back in 8th grade, I had just told my mom I want to start appearing more masculine, so I went out and bought like oversized baggy jeans and I got a buzz cut. I must have looked like so awkward, but I would just be like, oh, I'm so happy right now.
Even though he felt himself, he didn't feel safe. Daniel says there was abuse and neglect at home, claims that his mother denies. She says she loves her child unconditionally, but in a message to 16 by 9, she referred to Daniel as her. Daniel moved into a shelter last summer.
There are people who might do drugs or drink just to kind of cope with what's happening. Or, I have people who will steal or sell drugs or underage prostitution so that they have a place to stay. It doesn't make them really a bad person. I think people are just people, everyone, me included, is just doing what we need to survive.
Daniel says he's the only transgender person in his shelter and spends most of his time alone.
I don't really interact with the people in the shelter that much unless I'm in the kitchen because I enjoy baking a lot.
There's a desperate lack of shelters specifically for youth like Daniel.
Oh my God. If I had to go to a women's shelter, that would probably be the most uncomfortable experience ever.
A place where they can live as the gender they identify as, safe from ridicule and harassment, safe to just be themselves.
So that's why I think trans-inclusive LGBT housing, shelters, group homes, stuff like that is needed.
Where families may have failed, governments are slowly stepping in. A housing program exclusively for LGBT youth recently opened in Toronto. No such place exists in Edmonton yet.
A lot of friends or people I know don't have to try and figure out if they're going to be able to eat. If they have to, that's their parents' job, not their job. So yeah, I'm growing up a little bit too fast. Sometimes this is what you gotta do.
It's a population in crisis. Last year, a transgender person was murdered every 31 hours worldwide. In Ontario alone, 20% of transgender people have been sexually or physically assaulted. 10% have been denied hospital care. That's on top of the daily attacks, threats, and injustices that go unreported.
When we think about violence towards trans people, I think first and foremost, we must acknowledge that trans women of color experience the highest rates of discrimination, the highest rates of violence and homicide.
And without action, lives will continue to hang in the balance.
It is an epidemic.
An epidemic Hillary Clinton is talking about.
Transgender Americans are targeted.
Prime Minister Trudeau campaigned on it.
We will introduce government legislation to ensure that trans rights are fully protected.
Still, transgender people don't feel protected. Gender identity is not explicitly covered under Canada's Criminal Code or even the Federal Human Rights Act. There was a bill attempting to add it, but it never went anywhere.
And if we're not protected, then once again we're erased and we're not recognized.
It was protection Ivana Ortigoza was hoping for when she came to Canada as a refugee in the 90s.
I feel a little weird because the street was used to be my place for work.
She was a sex worker in Toronto for 11 years. She called this street her office.
That was almost 15 years ago when I get out of here.
Ivana says she was raped, assaulted, and when a gunman started shooting women like her, she almost lost everything.
I was coming around that corner when the guy was shooting people from that up there, down. And he started shooting, and my friend and me run to here, and we hiding right here together.
Ivana was shot in the ribs. No one was ever arrested.
I getting a little emotional because I survived. You know, that time I think I never gotta get out of here. I gotta die here like too many. You know? But I did. Thank you for him.
Ivana found her safe place with Mark. They met 16 years ago. He helped get her off the street, and he still wants to protect his wife.
I notice the looks that she gets and the projection of people's attitudes that it's troubling. I'll notice, but I won't say anything because you know why. You know, it's not necessary.
Ivana still struggles to find work, but wouldn't change who she is.
I don't think I am a mistake, how people say it, because I don't feel a mistake. You know, I'm here to change this world.
It took willpower, love, and luck to get Ivana off the street. Others are still looking and need help.
Obviously, we know the problem is not going to change overnight. These girls still have to live. Until we get more funding, resources, and places to help us, not only Ashley, but so many of my sisters will be out there disparaged with no medical help, no housing, no stable place.
It's a gloomy morning in Detroit, and Julissa Abad is looking for her friend, Ashley.
Ashley sometimes sleeps around here when she finds a place that's safe. So right now I'm going to see if I can find her and make sure that she had an okay night.
After Ashley got a date, Julissa lost track of her, and she knows what can happen to transgender women in this area.
Some of them have been found killed, dead in different parts of the city. One was hit by a car. It's just not safe, and you have to worry about the dates.
Ashley is homeless, and unless Julissa looks for her, no one may notice she's missing.
A lot of buildings are abandoned, which crimes can take place. You can get robbed, dragged in them, raped, murdered. No one will find you for days.
Today, her friend is safe.
I'm good. Yeah.
Good, let's get over here so we don't get all wet.
Okay. I sleep out here 3 times out of a month. Not even out of a month, out of a week, I should say. That's my date. I'm sorry, this would be one of my clients, probably. I don't like it, but I have to deal with it because I don't have nowhere else to go. But I don't like it, but I deal with it. I try to make it the best way I can out here. I'm freezing.
And yet, despite the violence, the pain, and the hurt, there is beauty.
I wouldn't want my life any other way, which sounds crazy, but I think it's just because I'm so at peace with myself and so comfortable in my own skin.
We are powerful. You know, we are teachers. We are actresses. We are all of them. So now they're coming up, and I hope don't stop.
We need to find a way to accept one another and accept our differences, because they're not going to change.
Women say being trans is a gift.
The bravest thing you can do is go out and be yourself. That takes courage. That takes, pardon the expression, takes balls. Whether you've given them up or not, it takes courage to be yourself every day.
People may think they don't know anyone who is transgender, But the reality is trans people are everywhere, and they're targeted by violence.
If you had told, like, even 10-year-old me, someday big you know, he's gonna be living in a shelter, you know, he's not gonna be living at home, it would probably have just, like, blown my mind.
And that violence can start when they're just kids.
It's just, we're just trying to be ourselves, and then you can't deny what we are because it's right there in front of you.
While being transgender has reached the mainstream, with women like Caitlyn Jenner and Laverne Cox on the cover of magazines, the reality is far less glamorous.
We've just been, born into, you're wrapped around the pink blanket, you're wrapped around the blue blanket, and that is how your life will go.
Transgender is when the sex a person is assigned at birth doesn't match the gender they identify as.
And when people can't figure you out, they get angry. People get angry, they're afraid, they get aggressive.
Before I go out of my house, it's like you be a warrior.
Still, these women... Good evening and welcome to 16 by 9. They are beaten, verbally assaulted, sometimes even murdered. Violence against transgender people is so frequent, many fear for their lives. That's why the transgender fight is being called the next civil rights movement, a fight to simply be treated humanely. Until that happens, people on the front line say it can be a struggle to find a safe place.
The only thing I remember the person saying was, let's see if you're a real woman or not. You hear it all, tranny, freak, you should die,
I get shot, I get raped, I get beat up. One of them women take her vagina and said, "This is a woman, you don't have it."
Speak to any transgender person and you will hear of insults, threats, and attacks so brutal, it's almost inhumane.
And not too long ago, a woman and a child were collecting cans and opened the dumpster and found a trans woman in there. Yeah. At times, I feel like we have been casted aside or that there isn't enough help for us.
We pass them on the street, on the subway. Some of us stare, but we don't know who they are.
It makes me sad. Like, I go to wherever I'm sleeping at, I cry, and just to know that, I'm transgender and I really can't go where I need to go in life.
Harassment, homelessness, murder. It happens to transgender people almost every day.
We are here. We're not pretending to be women just to kind of piss you off, people.